I'm not sure I believe you when you say you're doing everything right on LinkedIn. And I say that with affection because the business owners who tell me this are usually working their backsides off. They're posting 4 or 5 times a week, commenting, showing up, doing everything the LinkedIn advice told them to do. Possibly I even told them to do. And then they get a few likes from peers, the odd great post from a vendor, a DM from someone selling lead generation, but no proper buyer conversations. So I'm going to throw a spanner in the works and ask you this. What if your posting is the problem? What if the thing you've been told to do more of is training the right buyers to scroll straight past you? Because you can be visible every day and still be very easy to forget. You can be invisible by being visible. And that's an expensive position for any business to be in. Now, I'm not suggesting you start chasing algorithm trends, but in March 2026, LinkedIn changed how its feed ranks content. And a lot of people are seeing fewer eyeballs on their posts and wondering, what the fuck is going on with this platform? Its newer system is now using AI to understand what a post is actually about and then connects the subject of that post to people's changing professional interests and behaviors. So it's watching what happens when your post gets published. Are people stopping to read it? Are people sharing it? Or do they take one look and just keep scrolling on past? LinkedIn has used short dwell time as a negative ranking signal for years, meaning if people don't linger on what you've published, LinkedIn has very little reason to distribute it further, so they don't. But if people stay with a post, if they read it, it gives the algorithm more evidence that the content was relevant to the person who read it. So there's two things going on here at the same time right now in 2026 around this. There's LinkedIn doing its thing, and then there's your buyer's brain. And think about a route that you drive every single day of the week. You probably come to a T-junction somewhere along it, right? And you already know where to slow down. Your foot is already moving towards the brake without you even looking at the stop sign because you know the sign is there. You've seen it so many times that your brain just doesn't even register it. Your content can become like that stop sign. The same type of hook, the same format of carousel, the same tips that you always talk about, the same tidy lessons tucked underneath the lovely photograph of you, maybe at a networking event holding a coffee. And after a while, the buyer knows your routine. Their mouse moves beyond your post or their thumb just keeps going when they're scrolling on their phone before they've even taken in your name or what your post is about. Fair play to you. You've trained them beautifully, and posting more of the same will not reverse that for love nor money. So what happens is it's given them another chance to rehearse the scroll. And every scroll past teaches your buyer the same way it teaches LinkedIn. So basically what I'm saying here is if you publish 5 skimmable posts a week, you give both the algorithm and your buyer plenty of practice ignoring you. And there's a lot of that going around because the AI rubbish that people are posting right now. So I want you to think of content as a currency. Here's what I mean by this. Imagine that every post is a note with your name printed on it, and its value comes from what the reader can do with the thought leadership inside it. Maybe it helps them see a risk differently, or it gives them language for a problem that they struggle to explain internally themselves, or maybe it gives them a point of view worth taking into their next board meeting. But if you're printing notes faster than you're adding thought leadership behind them, well, each one buys you a little less attention. So your currency devalues. One strong, bold, contrarian, or controversial, or provocative idea can do more for your positioning and your messaging and your marketing in 1 week than a year of boring content that you're posting for the sake of raising your profile and trying to be visible on LinkedIn. Buyers price your expertise partly through the quality of thinking that they can see before they ever get to speak to you. And I see it in my own content. Honestly, sometimes I fall back into the habit of posting vanilla shit, content for visibility's sake, but then realize it's so fucking boring. And when I get really focused and I post good content, the inbound interactions increase. And the funny part is, it doesn't take a whole lot more effort to be bolder. Usually it's just me turning the AI off and thinking a bit more creatively. So what should we be actually writing and creating for LinkedIn? Well, I'm going to give you 3 different approaches that each have 3 different jobs. Okay, approach number 1 is called the 2-part hook. Sometimes you already know what you want to write about, but getting it started, that's the tough part, right? You've got the idea, but the opening isn't strong enough to make somebody stop. And I see so many people write incredible content and then introduce it with something really boring, like, here are 5 things every business should know about cybersecurity. Snooze. And very often they've buried the lead. I don't know if you've heard of that term. It's a journalistic term, meaning the interesting part is hiding way down below in the content, paragraph 4 or 5. And that's where the 2-part hook helps. So here's how it works. The 2-part hook is basically 2 short sentences back to back. The first sentence names the tension or the problem or the challenge or the obstacle or the result, something interesting that's really going on and happening in your buyer's world right now. And the second gives them a specific reason to continue reading the content. So a hook only has to earn the next sentence. Let me give you an example. A generic version could be 5 things your board should know about penetration testing. And a 2-part hook would sound more like, your last pen test gave the board a green light. Here's the question it left unanswered. So the first sentence creates that tension, and the second one goes, oh, there's an unanswered question, and it does what it's called, it opens a curiosity loop. The second tells the reader what they'll get by staying and reading the rest of your post. Here's another example. Agentic AI will strip hours out of your technical delivery. Here's the part of your consultancy buyers may pay more for when it does. And another, cyber budgets are tightening while the use of virtual CISOs is rising. Here's what that changes for consultants still selling open-ended days. Each one gives the buyer a clear reason to read the next line. Here's how to write your own. First off, write the whole post and then ask yourself, what is the main point of this post? What makes it relevant right now? What will the reader understand by the time they've read it all the way through to the end? When you've written your hook, read it aloud. Would your buyer know why the post is relevant to them? Would they know what they'll get for the next 30 seconds of their attention? And if they can say yes to both, congrats, woohoo, off you go, post it. Now, a better hook is going to get more people into the post, but once there, you're still going to need something worth saying. And this is where a lot of content falls down. It's perfectly well written, but there's no real point or substance or point of view behind it. So let's fix that next. Approach 2, the point of view post. A point of view post says the thing your buyers keep discussing in private or think or feel, but don't actually say out loud because they don't want to admit it to themselves, maybe, never mind anybody else. And people in your industry might be skirting around this topic in public. I call the source of that idea the unsaid gap. The thing that once they trust you, they'll say, can I be honest with you? And then tell you the thing. Or it could be the problem that buyers recognize immediately, but struggle to explain internally. The change everyone can feel, even though the market is still using their old language. And here's an example. Cyber consultants are rightly looking at agentic AI and wondering what it means for their work. Technical execution is getting faster, and when delivery gets faster, buyers will start questioning a price built around the number of days it takes. So the point of view could be AI will reduce the value of execution hours. It will increase the value of strategic decision making. That gives you a post about what the consultancy should sell next, because the buyer still needs someone to decide which risk deserves money right now, which issues can wait, what does the board need to understand, who is prepared to own whatever the recommendation is. That all requires senior and strategic decision making, and it gives you a useful commercial question. When buyers have tighter budgets and increasing responsibility, how should a cyber consultancy package access to that strategic decision making? That could become a post about fractional leadership or resilience retainers, or why an open-ended block of consulting days has become harder to approve. So how do you write this? Well, you start with something you've heard repeatedly. Name the commercial tension underneath it. Then say what you believe the buyer should do with that information. With the AI example, that's strategic thinking properly, and AI makes the consultancy more useful. Leave it buried inside a day rate and procurement will start looking for the cheapest vendor. That's a point of view. It gives the buyer something to consider, disagree with even, or carry into a conversation with somebody else because it got them thinking. And if it came from what you're hearing, seeing, and experiencing on the ground, that's so much better than sitting in front of a blank content planner wondering what the heck you're going to post about. Sometimes, though, the point of view is clear and the buyer already holds a belief that makes it harder for them to accept it. You need to walk them through your argument instead of dropping a conclusion on them and just hoping they'll agree. And that's where approach number 3, the myth-truth sandwich, earns its keep. So this is one to use when the buyer's current belief is part of the problem. You start inside that belief and you put pressure on it with an example, a client moment, or a piece of evidence. And then you give them a more useful conclusion, including the conditions that make it true. So it's really turning their belief upside down. The belief should unravel as they read. And you don't need to announce it as in, most people think X, but actually Y. And definitely don't write it that way, because that's exactly the sort of thing that AI writes and LinkedIn are watching out for. And if they see that kind of text, they will not distribute your content. So don't do that. And your buyer's probably read sentences in that structure 400 times this week already. The opening meets the buyer inside a familiar situation, and the middle exposes the commercial problem. And the ending gives them a conclusion with some conditions. So here's an example using content. Imagine the underlying belief is posting more will eventually get me clients on LinkedIn. So your post could say, you published 18 times last month. The people reacting were peers, recruiters, and software vendors. Your ideal buyer didn't stay with any of it long enough to start a conversation. Frequency helps when the message is already relevant and distinctive. Repeating generic content gives the buyer more chances to classify you as background noise. Review your last 10 posts, keep the ideas only you could have written, and build next month's content from those. Again, the conclusion has conditions. Frequency might help, but it needs a strong message to carry it through. That's what makes the argument credible. Before you write your content, choose the approach based on the job the post needs to do, and tell me in the comments which of the 3 approaches you'll try first. These 3 approaches will all improve your posts and distribution and readability and all the things. But if you write a sharp one and still catch yourself thinking, hang on, I don't actually know what I want this business to be known for, or the problem is sitting underneath the content. Sometimes it's the positioning, sometimes it's your offer, which maybe you're still sold through days and deliverables, or a business where every decision is still waiting for you. That's what the Cyberscale diagnostic is for. It's only 11 questions. It takes you about 3 minutes, and it tells you which of 5 constraints is actually holding your consultancy up right now. So next month's focus and efforts can go into the right parts of the business. It's linked below. Here's what I want you to remember from this video, if you remember nothing else at all. The market reprices you one forgettable post at a time. So before you publish again, decide where the post might be falling down, the opening, the point of view, or the argument you're making. Choose the right approach. Write the useful post and let the daily posting streak fend for itself. The internet will survive.